Okay, well, welcome to Bio 203, Anatomy Physiology 1, here at Hagerstown Community College in the spring 2021 semester. I'm going to make these videos available before the semester actually starts. This may be the first time you've seen me. You will see me also in Zoom meetings. We're going to have regular Zoom meetings over the course of the semester because the lecture is 100% online, the lecture portion. The lab portion was going to be on campus for the whole semester, but now it has changed. It may change again later on, I'm not sure. But apparently the first 4 weeks of the semester, the labs will be completely online also. Until the president says it's okay for us to have on-campus classes. See what happens. It's a difficult time, I know, but we can do the best we can to get through this. So it's going to be the first of many lectures I'll be making over the course of the semester on dealing with each chapter that we cover. So this is chapter 1, this is 203 chapter 1. And I will be making these, and there'll probably be several, each chapter will probably require the making of several videos from 2 to 5, because I generally don't make them more than 30 or 40 minutes. One thing because of storage problems and storage times, and also I don't want to make really long lectures. So I will make this, I'm recording it, I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel, the URL of which is in the syllabus. And you can go there at any time, download it, and you can view these lectures whenever you want to, however many times you want to. So what I'm going to do is, I use PowerPoint, just like everybody else does. And what I'm going to do is called a screen share. I've got the PowerPoint on the computer, and I'm going to pull it up, and you're going to see it on a screen. And my image and this whole image you're seeing right now will be pushed over to the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see the PowerPoint. And it's good, the PowerPoints are going to be available in D2L. You can download them, and you can follow, and you can have a copy of it and follow right along with how I'm doing. Remember, the PowerPoints are just like bullet. There exist to remind me of what I like to say. And so there's a lot more that you need to know for the exams and everything than what's on the PowerPoint. So it's a good idea to take notes along with this lecture. Okay, so right now I'm going to screen share the PowerPoint. Wait a minute here. Okay, here's the PowerPoint. And I'm going to start the slideshow from the beginning, Bio 203. And then I click on and go through each slide and talk about the stuff on the slide that's in chapter 1, and a little more than what's in chapter 1. Okay, so anatomy and physiology. It's a science course. It's a biology. It's a biology course. Study of living things is biology. And of course, we're living things. Okay. Just going to briefly say, what is a living thing? How do you define living thing? Well, it's kind of complicated, actually. You might think, oh, it should be easy to figure out whether something's alive or not. But living thing has a series of characteristics it has to have in order for it to be called living. For one thing, it has to be composed of cells. Other thing, it has to conduct homeostasis, it has to have a constant internal environment. It has to grow, it has to differentiate, it has to evolve. It has a utilized energy. It essentially has to move. And a living thing has to exhibit all of those characteristics to be considered alive. Some things exhibit some of the characteristics. Like, for example, crystals, they grow. Living things grow, but they're not alive because they don't exhibit all the other characteristics. Okay. So this is anatomy and physiology, branch of biology dealing with the structure, which is the anatomy part, and the function of living things, which is the physiology part. We can go into the branches of anatomy, surface anatomy, internal anatomy, gross anatomy, microscopic anatomy. That's not important. Branches of physiology, a little bit more important. We're not talking about plants in this course, so we're not doing with plant physiology. We are going to do with animal physiology because we're animals, and we're going to define what an animal is in a little bit. And actually, the type of animal we are mammals. We feed our infants with mother's milk. And so mammalian physiology, so human physiology is really mammalian physiology, because all mammals sort of have the same organs, same structures, do everything in the same way. So it's going to be called human physiology or mammalian physiology. The other part of animal physiology is called comparative physiology, and it deals with all the animals that are non-mammals, like reptiles and like birds. Even insects, because insects are animals. That's called comparative, and that's actually where I did most of my work. But so that's everybody else's comparative. But we're not going to be talking very much about comparative. This is animal physiology or mammalian physiology. All right. I'm going to do something a little different, perhaps, than I think other A&P instructors, and it's also a little different than the book. This stuff, some of this stuff is not going to be in the book, so it's important to look over this and learn about it. And I have in B2L a little, some more documents talking about the human classification. That's not in the book. So we are in what's called Kingdom Animalia. We love to categorize things, and of course we categorize living things. We put them into categories. And one of the biggest categories, the next to the largest category, is called kingdoms. There's 6. There's another taxonomic category being larger called domains, but we don't have to worry about those. So we're in the kingdom Animalia. And so there are other kingdoms like plantae, like fungi, like protista, and 2 bacterial kingdoms. But how do you decide, what you put, so taxonomists who are scientists who categorize stuff, what traits do they use to assign organisms to kingdoms? There's only a few of them. And I think that's important to know. We are animals. What exactly is an animal? Okay. First of all, prokaryotic or eukaryotic cells. There's 2 types of cells on Earth: prokaryotic cells that are simpler or smaller. They don't have membrane-bounded organelles like a nucleus, and they're only found in bacteria. Every other living thing on Earth has eukaryotic cells with a nucleus, mitochondria, an ER, a lysosome. We're going to go over actually those organelles in a later chapter. Okay, second bullet. How many cells make up an organism? Organisms are made up of cells. Living things are composed of cells. How many cells do you need to make an organism? At least 1. You got to have one, at least 1. And the ones that are composed of only 1 cell are called unicellular. And all bacteria are unicellular, and most protistans, which are things like algae and amoebas and paramecium and those type of things, are unicellular eukaryotes. All the rest of the organisms are called multicellular, composed of many, many more than one cell. Like we're composed of hundreds of trillions of cells, right? But at one time in your life, you were composed of one cell, a zygote. After a union of your mother's oocyte and your father's spermatocyte, you will start off as one cell, and you went through a series of cell divisions called mitosis to become this multi-trillion celled organism that you are now. Okay. So there are three kingdoms that are multicellular: Animalia, or animals; Plantae, or plantae; and fungi. There's one exception with fungi. Some fungi are unicellular, they're called yeast. So there are some of these traits are not like 100%, like 100% of the kingdom is this. Like protistans aren't 100% unicellular. There are some actually multicellular protistans. And there are some unicellular fungi, and all the rest of fungi are multicellular. So, but that's okay. Okay. So we are multicellular. All right. Type of nutrition. Where do you get your food from? All right. We are called heterotrophs. We are heterotrophic because we have to eat other organisms. Right? That's where we get our nutrition from. As opposed to autotrophic organisms that make their own food. They eat their own food, but they actually make it through the process of photosynthesis. They're called autotrophic. And so plants, for example, are an autotrophic kingdom. For the most part, there's a little asterisk there. Some plants are actually heterotrophic, but the vast majority are autotrophic. Right? And then finally, presence or absence of a cell wall. All cells have a cell membrane that surrounds the cell, composed of phospholipids and, in animal cases, cholesterol. But most organisms also have a cell wall. Their cells have a cell wall. It's a rigid barrier of some type of carbohydrate. In plants, it's cellulose. In fungi, it's chitin. In bacteria, it's peptidoglycan. Like half of protistans also have a cell wall, but some of them don't. Like amoebas, like paramecium, they don't have a cell wall. But animals are unique in the sense that they are 100% without a cell wall. No animal has a cell wall. So, what are we? We're animals. And what is an animal? Animals are multicellular, heterotroph without a cell wall. There you go. We're also eukaryotic, but once you say multicellular, you don't really have to say eukaryotic. You could have said eukaryotic, multicellular, heterotrophic, and without a cell wall. But once you say multicellular, you don't have to say prokaryote because there's no such thing as a multicellular prokaryote. So if you're multicellular, you have to be eukaryotic. Okay. So that's the definition of an animal. And then we're going to get into classifying humans. We're going to go into lower, more exclusive hierarchical categories of living things that have similar traits. And we're going to go down and get down to what's called the species level, where we are the only organisms in that category. All right. So like I said, this is not really in the book, so this is good to go over this. And like I said, I have a document in D2L that goes through this. So we are kingdom Animalia, and the kingdom is divided up into phylos. Is the next lower, more exclusive category. And we're in the phylum Chordata. If you were an insect, you'd be in the phylum Arthropoda. If you're a starfish, you'll be in the phylum Echinodermata, lots of phylums. So we're in the phylum Chordata, which means we have the presence of a notochord. And this is something we'll get to at the end of next semester when we get into development. At one time, you were this flat disc of 3 germ layers called ectoderm, endoderm, and middle mesoderm. And sometime, the part of the mesoderm formed this cylindrical structure called a notochord. And it induced the ectoderm on top of it to spread out and form this hollow tube, the beginning of the central nervous system. The back part of a hollow tube became the spinal cord. The front part of the hollow tube became the brain. And then that notochord disappears, and you never see it again. It's gone for the rest of your life. So most members of Kingdom Chordata make a bony structure around that central nervous system, brain and vertebral, skull and vertebral column, to protect the central nervous system. And they're in what's called subphylum Vertebrata. However, if you had a notochord at any time of your life, you are a chordate. And so there are some invertebrates that are in the Kingdom Chordata. These little sea squirt things, they're little, really simple little filter feeders that live in a tidal basin, and they're chordates. Why? Because they had a notochord when they were embryo as well. There are some little tiny organisms that look like little tiny fishes, but they're not fish. And they have a notochord their entire life. So but they don't have any bones. So they don't have any vertebral columns, so they're invertebrates, but they're still chordates. Okay, enough of that. Then we come down below that. Each phylum is divided up into classes. We're in a class Mammalia. There's also class Reptilia, class Aves for birds. What the class is named after are mammillary glands, right, that provide milk. We feed our infants with mother's milk. That's the hallmark of mammals. Right? Any organism that does that is a mammal. We also have endothermy, a high constant body temperature that's maintained by an internal furnace, right? And it's constant at all times, or almost constant at all times. We also have what's called true hair. You can find hairs on insects and spiders, but they're not true hairs. They're not the kind of hairs you. But that's not important. Important thing is mammillary glands. All right. And then the next lower level is called orders. And in the class of Mammalia, there are a series of kind of orders. For example, there's order Carnivora, where dogs and cats are in. So actually, dogs and cats are mammals. They would be included with us in our class. When we get the order, we separate out. And Carnivora is over here, and we are in the order primates. And the hallmark of primates, the big thing is this, an opposable thumb. All primates have an opposable thumb. That really helps me to pick up this that particular drink, having an opposable thumb. Unfused immobile radius and ulna. Out here, where we can do this. A strong clavicle. Right here, collarbone, and stereoscopic vision. This is due to our at one time being arboreal beings. We lived in the trees, like our close relatives, like a lot of our close relatives still live in trees. In order to what's called breaking it, to go from branch to branch, you got to have a strong what's called pectoral girdle, and you got to attach them together with this strong collarbone. And if you're going to leap for a branch, you want to have good stereoscopic vision, because our eyes are put together like this. So there's a lot of overlap, so you have great depth perception. If you're going to jump to this other branch on another tree or something, and it's a long way down, you better know where it is in space. All right. That's opposed to what's called panoramic vision, where the eyes are moved to the sides of the head. This gives you very poor depth perception. But the advantage of that is people can't sneak up behind you. Your panoramic vision, you see all the way around. See, I can only see from here, and then over here, I can't see. So things can sneak up on me because my eyes are pointing in front. If I had panoramic vision, you couldn't sneak up on me. But anyway. Okay, and other organisms that run fast, for example, in carnivora, they lose their clavicle because that would really slow them down in running fast. Anyway, so family, the next lower level is family Hominidae. And this is where our close relatives that mostly are in the genus Homo, and they're all extinct except for us, and also one genus called Australopithecus. Many of the family Hominidae are extinct. Strong social structure, sexual dimorphism, mostly terrestrial. And in that, in that family are close relatives, the great apes, chimpanzees and orangutans, gibbons, and gorillas that's our family. Then we get down to from family to genus, Homo, we are genus Homo, and we are the only extant species of Homo alive on Earth. Every other species of Homo is extinct. We are Homo sapiens, which means in Latin, wise man. I don't know about that, but that's what it means. And so we have unique characteristics as primates. Other primates do not have. Is that opposable thumb? No, remember, all primates have opposable thumb. But we have what's called true bipedalism. We walk on two legs all the time. It's not perfect because we still got backaches and curvature of spines and everything, but we are truly bipedal. Other close relatives in the same family, they sometimes walk on 2 feet. You see chimps or gorillas, but only occasionally. Mostly they knuckle walk. Right? And then central nervous system sophisticated. So that's why we're the wise man. We have a more sophisticated central nervous system than the other primates. We're smarter than they are. I think so. And so that's two really unique characteristics of Homo sapiens. All right. Descent from trees about 4 to 5 billion years ago. So we were arboreal, just like some of our close relatives are now. Human beings, where do human beings come from? Well, Northeast Africa, Ethiopia, the Afar region of Ethiopia is thought to be the cradle of mankind. That's where the very first humans, and remember, any organism that is in the genus Homo is a human. And I think they're all extinct except for us. They first lived in trees, and in that part of Africa, that was actually like a tropical rainforest at one time, 4 to 5 million years ago, but it dried out and dried out enough so trees could no longer survive. It became a savanna. And then we had to live on a savanna. Well, you could either try to go south and try to kick the primates that lived in those trees out, or we had to figure out a way to live in savanna. So it's thought that led to these unique characteristics. Bipedalism evolved first. And we're not sure how bipedalism helped. Maybe it was allowed us to use our hands for fine work, and tool using. And then, but survival on the savannah means we had to have this incredible social network. We had to work together. We can't run very fast. We don't have big teeth. And so we got to work together, or else we're not going to survive on it. So that's thought to really have developed the central nervous system, particularly for this language, this communication system. It's more sophisticated than any other animal to survive on the savannah, particularly because we have what's called altricial offspring. I mean, extremely altricial. Precocious offspring, that they're born and they're ready to go. Like if you're like an antelope in the savannah, as soon as you're born, as soon as you pop out of mom, you stand up, you're running right away. You're feeding yourself right away. Well, they get milk from mom, but they're really almost like self-sufficient in a way. That's precocious. Human infants are completely helpless for years, completely dependent upon their parents. So this requires a really good social structure to keep these infants alive. Okay, to human ancestors. Before there was Homo, there was also Australopithecus afarensis. That is the oldest human ancestor we know. We're not sure where the transitional form between us and the rest of the primates are, but that's the oldest one we know. And out of Australopithecus came genus Homo. Homo erectus, one of the early ones. And this is the one, there's also Homo habilis. But Homo erectus is the one that left Africa, went into Europe, and evolved into Homo neanderthalensis, and over into Asia, into Homo sinensis, I think, and spread out over the whole world. And then finally, Homo sapiens arose, and why we're the only ones left, nobody's quite sure. We may have killed off the rest of the, like the Neanderthal man. Why are they extinct? Well, we don't know. We may have killed them. We probably also bred with them, so we probably have Neanderthal genes in us. But we are the only member of genus Homo still extant, that is still with us. Okay. So then we go from there into basic themes. How we're going to, run this study of the human organism. Well, we're going to use what's called a reductionist approach. And this is, the human body is an incredibly complicated device. It has lots of moving parts. It's really complicated. And the way to understand something that's really complicated is to break it down into bite-sized pieces. Start small and work on to more complicated structures. So we're going to do an organ system approach. Well, once we get through these first few chapters where we talk about cells and organelles and stuff, a little bit of genetics, then we'll jump into the organ systems. And we'll look at each organ system in line, talk about it. Okay. You need to know some anatomical directions because if you directed some part of the human body, you need to be able to say, where is that? So inferior versus superior. Superior, inferior. Also known as caudal. Down here is caudal. The caudal refers to tail, to cephalic, which is brain. So it's also caudal, cephalic, or inferior to superior. Then ventral versus dorsal, anterior versus posterior. This is ventral, this is dorsal. So you have a dorsal vertebral column, the dorsal spinal cord. And this is ventral. But it's also called anterior, posterior. All right. proximal and distal. My shoulder well, my elbow is proximal to my shoulder. My wrist is distal. That is, the closer things are to the center line is proximal. The farther ours is distal. Think of distal as farther away. Oh, I skipped over medial and lateral. Medial and lateral is almost the same thing. Medial is also close to the midline, and the farther you get away from the midline, the more lateral it is. So those are almost the same. So here are the reductions approach, and we're not gonna get into atoms and molecules. You're gonna have a connect modules. Now, when we first had the first Zoom meeting and everything, we talk about how the course is gonna run, and there's gonna be these modules called connect modules, and you're gonna have to go over that. I'm not gonna give you a lecture on atoms and molecules, because I think you should already know that. And the connect module is a refresher course for that. So atoms, molecules, macromolecules also, like DNA and proteins, we'll go over it briefly. Then organelles, those are the parts of the cell. We're going to go over those. And then we're going to get into cells. How those fit together as cells and how cells work. Cells make up tissues. So we're going to have a whole chapter on tissues. Tissues make up organs. Organs make up organ systems. Organ systems make up the whole organism. So we're gonna get to the preliminaries of a little bit about organelles and cells and tissues, and then get on to organ systems and go through each organ system in turn and see how it fits together. But remember, this is kind of an artificial way to look at it, because remember, you have the digestive system. Well, does it work apart from the nervous system or the endocrine system or the muscle system? No, it doesn't. They all work together. But it is a way of at least making it a little simpler in trying to understand this very complex thing, the human body. Okay, on that note, I'm going to call it because it's been about 30 or 40 minutes, and then I'll come back on video 2 for chapter 1 in a little bit. So, so see you later for now.